welcome to Telling the Tale, the podcast that this week and some other weeks in our history, we talk about The Expanse, the brand new Telltale game. Other times we just talk about other Telltale games, but this week it is The Expanse, a Telltale series, episode 3, first one. It's released on August 24th, 2023, and developed by all the other people we've said developed it in the other episodes. But before we talk about any of that, I would like to introduce the wonderful host of Telling the Tale, Dustin Jackson.
Woo! Hey, you know what? We're kind of the first ones in terms of Telltale podcasts.
I don't think that's true. but
Or would you say we're the first ones to make it over 100 episodes, though?
Undoubtedly. Or at least a podcast that has covered Telltale specifically for 100 episodes? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, see, we're a first one.
We're the first at something. I mean, we have to be, because otherwise they would have reached out, right?
What, the other Telltale podcast?
Yeah.
What, they would have given us, like, welcome baskets? Like, as soon as we move on to the scene, it's like, hey, welcome to the Telltale neighborhood.
Listen, I've done some light Googling about the existence of other Telltale podcasts, just to find out if there was one, because it doesn't seem like the wildest idea, right?
Right.
Couldn't find anything. So if you are out there and you're doing your due diligence in looking up the most famous Telltale podcast, finding us, you should reach out, because I don't know you.
Yeah, we don't know anyone who does Telltale podcasts except for one another.
Yeah, I know Dustin Jackson.
I know Mitchell Wolf. He's done a Telltale podcast before.
I poured myself such cold ice water, and it's...
Oh, is it good? I didn't pour myself an ice-cold anything.
You didn't... You came into this episode dry?
Oh, I'm going in dry.
Oh, no. That's rough. I don't think I could do a podcast without a moisture.
You know what? Normally, I have, like, water or something, or a drink, but this time, I forgot.
Do you think that the audience thinks, just by, like, how we sound right now, could they hear how wet I am compared to you?
They can hear the wet levels?
Yeah. Because I'm also sweaty. I was out in the sun all day.
I've heard a few pitter-patters of sweat drops.
Okay. That's the kind of joke that makes me think, like, oh, he's definitely joking about that. But then in an hour, I'll think, was Dustin joking about that? Did he hear a sweat drop?
I thought someone left the shower on.
Yeah, and meanwhile, I hear all the gusts of air blowing through cactus arms on your end.
That's true.
Just the dustiest, driest.
That's true. I'm crumbling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm down to like 3 fingers.
Well, before I melt into the abyss and you become it, let's just do a podcast about The Expanse.
Good idea.
So, I would normally, at this point in the show, Dustin, ask you what you thought of the podcast. And believe me, we'll get there. But I did
I thought of the podcast.
Sorry. Telltale makes video games.
I think it's going pretty well so far.
I would normally ask you about the podcast and then edit that bit out. And then ask you about the video game. But instead, I actually have a quote here from Alter Mentality. Friend of the show. She had played through this episode a couple nights ago, or last night maybe, and she said that she was very affected by it.
Ooh.
So I think we'll start the episode with this. She says, and I quote, "I started off feeling like this was going to be an exploration of some crazy cult that wanted to live forever and outsmart death by waiting for aliens to come and revive them. It gave off major Fallout Vault vibes, except it ended up being far more elegant than Bethesda usually does it. My empathy and understanding evolved gradually over the course of exploration and learning about the colony until I found myself tearing up at the plaque dedicated to the children. If you be a healer, heal. If you be a miracle worker, work. If you're just passing through, then pass through in peace. And then the sight of a bunch of child-sized bodies wrapped in netting in their little makeshift coffins. I also cried about Maya at the end, but I feel like that speaks for itself. So,
Right.
yeah, I think there's a lot of emotional punches in this episode.
Yeah, which is good because I feel like otherwise this episode is very short. And
Oh,
and
this
and
episode is incredibly short. It blew my mind that it
yeah,
ended when it did.
same. When it ended, before it cut to the credits, I was like, "Is there like a another like whole half of this left?"
Yeah, so we've talked about episode length a lot in this show, but I will say, reiterating it and probably making my point on this redundant by 3 or 4 episodes at this point, they used to be longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Now that you mention it, I think Telltale episodes used to be longer than this. Longer than maybe almost an hour.
The point and click adventure ones, the longest of them, I think might have gone to like 4 hours.
Which one? Do you remember which one it was? I don't remember.
It's probably a Sam and Max. But like Sam and Max would routinely be like, if not quite 3 hours, just you still got to put aside 3 hours of time.
Yeah.
And now we're dealing with episodes that are less than 1. That's wild.
Yeah. On one hand, it's throwing me off because I'm used to getting like between 1.5 to 2.5 with these more Walking Dead style choicey Telltale episodes. But at the same time, it's hard for me to really judge considering it's being released differently. Like it's every 2 weeks, and it's all coming out way closer to one another than like any other Telltale. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't want to sound mean about it because I don't think it speaks to the quality of the episode. It's just that you get less episode.
You get a lot less episode, and it's inconsistent as well. So
Yeah,
sometimes
to
you
the
can
to
get
the
like
point.
a 2-hour episode followed by a 45-minute episode.
Yeah, to the point where like I'm sitting there thinking, even if like these 3 episodes were just short ones and then they save all of the big stuff for the last 2 episodes, I still don't like that. I still don't like it being so like.
I don't think that's what it's going to be either. I
Yeah,
think they're just all 5 short episodes.
Yeah, and it's. I don't know how I feel about it because it is less game for a pretty steep asking price for a Telltale game. But at the same time, I kind of also like that they don't feel the need to, like, if an episode has a good place to end, or if they, do all that they set out to do with an episode, they shouldn't need to drag it out and have, like, a bunch of filler shit. Like, we don't need Drummer to go play a whack-a-mole minigame for an hour.
Right.
But
yeah, I mean, that's true, but also when Strong Bad plays his little not NES machine,
that's fun.
I love it. I love when he does
that. Yeah, and I guess I would be a little more understanding with these short episodes if, like, wildly different things happened in them. This episode, it did have some good emotional gut punches, but it's just more of the same.
Yeah.
That we've seen in the last 2 episodes. Maybe even, like, less of the same, considering we got less of it.
Yeah, so, frankly, Courtney having such a strong feeling about this episode surprised me for 2 reasons. One, I talked to her a little bit more about what she said after the fact, and for her, Maya died at the end of this episode, which, spoiler alert, is something that can happen. She did not die for me, and I think that while I like that that's such a big difference that can happen, for me, from my playthrough, that's just like a lot less emotional of an ending to an
Right.
episode.
Yeah. To an episode that you were barely playing to begin with.
Yeah, and I bet Courtney was probably feeling like, well, what the hell? Why did not my Maya live? But
Mine didn't either. My Maya died.
oh, really? Okay. And actually, we talked about like what our choices were, and we were not able to completely conclude what specific choice led to that.
Yeah.
So maybe
I was
we'll have
wondering
to compare
about it.
choices at the end to find
Okay.
out why that happened exactly. But like it was, I bet she and maybe you, Dustin, you can tell me about this for your perspective. I bet you wish Maya lived.
Yeah. You know what? Thinking about it, I kind of wish he was still around.
I very much understand that perspective, but for me, I'm thinking like, well, I
I
wish
wish
my
Maya died.
episode had an ending.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Um, I totally agree. Having that, the emotional impact of Maya dying really goes a long way in an episode that really just does not have that much to it. It's short. Guess what? You're exploring a space station.
You are exploring in a
I think you
third
do like
space station.
one. I think you do one puzzle there.
Yeah, puzzle.
You connect. You connect
Oh
to
yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's
the
just
electricity
so
circuits.
rudimentary. It's trial and error if you don't get it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
Yeah.
watching in what direction a chord goes and then picking that direction.
Yeah. I do really like that Courtney got such a reaction out of this episode.
Yeah.
Or rather, this episode got a reaction out of her. I don't know if I'm quite there. I did for Maya dying. I was like, oh, I don't like that. But you know, the all the dead kids on the spaceship, that it is emotional. I get it, but I don't know. It's hard for me to shed a tear for all these dead children that I don't know.
Dustin
I'm
only
sad
cares about dead kids he knows, people. That's
well, no, I get the situation, but I don't know. In a Telltale video game, I've seen so many people die that I have been closer to.
even younger
And
ones.
Yeah. Like this is a shitty situation, to be sure. I do buy that it is very sad, but Drummer didn't even cry. Drummer and Maya were just like, "Oh man, that sucks.
Well,
That's a bummer." And that's
Drummer wouldn't. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not really her character, but I think it is
right.
It is sad to me.
It
but
is sad.
It's
It is
more
sad.
than sad. It was more like, we should back up a little bit. So
Okay.
the space station you go to, this is the one that the pirates were chasing you down for the coordinates of. It's the one that Cox, if Cox is still alive for you, is saying like, hey, this is the big score. And Cox is dead for me. Was Cox in this episode at all for you?
Did not even show up.
Yes.
He's alive, but I feel like we're getting some classic Telltale sensibilities.
Yeah, for this episode, I didn't see Virgil at all. I saw Khan
No
very
Virgil.
briefly at the beginning for like a second.
Yeah.
She said a sentence or two while she was like flying you to the space station, and then you don't see her again. A very isolated episode, both in terms of how the space station is very much on its own in the expanse of space, and also in the sense that most of the characters aren't in it. By the way, I thought when we first met all the characters on the ship, we were like gearing up for the situation where this group of characters was going to be the group of characters that we start with, and as we, visit all these different space stations and stuff, we our little cast. Some people die, some people join in. We've had the same static group of characters all 3 episodes. It only goes down. It only only people can die.
Yeah, I mean, you'll meet an occasional like guy who tries to shoot you, like in this episode, but they don't matter at all.
Right. Yeah. There's enemy combatants, and they die very quickly. There's in episode 2 there was the pirate on the radio. I think Toussaint was his name.
Yeah.
And then in this one, there's a bunch of audio logs. There were audio logs in the other ones of like the people that used to be on the station, but they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
It really is a tight story, a very tight world. In the way that The Expanse, the show and book series, are not. The Expanse is a huge Game of Thrones-ly kind of world-building accomplishment. There's tons of characters all the time. They're doing all sorts of different stuff. They live in different places. They have different goals. They have different backgrounds. And this is a very narrow cast, specific story, which I kind of think is cool. But I would, if you're doing that, I would want more introspection on the characters in the story that I don't know if we're getting.
Yeah, I'm there too.
Yeah.
It and here's my thing. I will fully admit I went into this knowing this was probably not gonna be my favorite Telltale game we've played. But, you know, I thought the same about The Walking Dead way back when, before I played it.
Tales from the Borderlands.
Tales from the Borderlands. We were just saying the other day what a surprise that game is. Mm-hmm. This one just it's basically it's less than what I expect, and I'm really trying not to sound mean about it, considering you know, it is still a game that is going right now. This is very fresh, but man, it's just not bringing it for me. Not that I'm having like an awful time, not that I dislike everything about it, but it's just giving me like this episode, especially just being so short, just gave me no real reason to latch on to it. And sometimes that's just how some games are going to be. I totally get that is a me thing. I can see how someone else would love this.
Someone else would love this is a great backhanded review.
Well, I think it still counts as a compliment. It's saying like, yeah, you know, this is just not my thing, but I don't necessarily think what it's doing is like bad, but I do agree with you. It's very narrow. No real other. I'll tell you this: coming up with a weekly guy this week was so hard because there's so few characters. B, there's just not enough time for them to really do anything.
I have a weekly guy that I think might be. It counts. I've decided it counts, but it's maybe one of the like most sideswipey weekly guy choices I've ever done for this podcast. Just because gotta in this episode.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I feel bad being a Mr. Complainy Pants about it, but
so when this game was being marketed for what felt like a year and a half before it came out, I was frequently trying to talk to you about it on and off the show in our like Discord communities. Whenever people would ask me about it, I was kind of trying to sow the seeds of like, without saying it in these words, I don't know how much I care about The Expanse individually or personally. Right. But I think the fact that Telltale is coming back with a lot of people who were at Telltale in the style that they were doing it, that did work a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of it, is exciting even if it doesn't feel exciting. So, like, you need to give yourself a little permission to feel excited, maybe against better judgment, because, like, not better judgment, that's not the right idea, but, like, you know what I mean? I think people had to do it with Sea of Thieves a little bit, too, when that was happening, where, like, Sea of Thieves was the first, like, adventure-y Rare game that Rare put out in over it was like a decade at that point, because before that was Rare Replay, which was just a compilation, not just a compilation, but it was a compilation. And then it was the Kinect Sports trilogy, which was what that was. So like it was as far back as Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts before Rare Replay. So that's a huge amount of time. And
yeah,
or before
it's
Sea of
less
Thieves,
you're it's less you're excited about what the product is and just more excited that they get to make a product.
Well, yeah, I don't even know if I would say that. It was just like, I don't know if I feel excited by what I've been shown, but I know I should be excited about this. So I'm trying to kind of get myself in the mood so that when it comes out, I'm able to receive it in that way. And I think Sea of Thieves kind of made good on that. It became a very exciting game. It took a little while and had some stumbles, but like it was that for a good amount of people
totally.
eventually. And the Expanse, I think, is not doing that. Until I heard from Courtney what her thoughts were, I came out of that episode and I put the controller down, and I had one of the most negative feelings about a Telltale game actually made by Telltale that like we might have ever done outside of CSI.
Even what about new Tales from the Borderlands?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of using the caveat that that's not a Telltale game.
Oh yeah, right. You mean specifically from Telltale themselves?
Yeah, from Telltale themselves. Like, I don't know if I've ever been this cold on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like the worst parts of the first, not the worst parts, but like the loosest part, the thinnest parts of the first half of Minecraft are kind of like in that in this level. But even then, Minecraft goes places eventually, and Minecraft has some really interesting ideas.
Yeah.
And there are interesting ideas here, but like, I've never been more convinced than I was after playing this episode that this should have been one premium product. This should have been a solid one game with, like, you can divide it into 5 chapters in the like chapter select if you want, but this is not an episodic game.
Yeah, because if you get to like this part, if this is all just one complete game and you get to chapter 3, we'll call it, then it's fine. You have the whole game. Who cares if like this chapter is shorter than the others? It served its purpose in the story, and now you get to move on to the next one. But as like an episodic every other week thing, you're like, where's the rest of this episode?
Yeah. And B, as much as I liked, and I think I was hotter on it than you, the concept of what they're trying to do with these coffins on the space station, which we still didn't really talk about.
Right. No, well, let me say beforehand that I did like the idea. I don't think any of that was like done badly or anything. I'm just saying I feel like it affected Courtney more than it did me, but it didn't like not affect me at all. I still thought it was like, well, I love that visual of they're looking down the chasm and they see just like all the coffins sticking out. That's interesting. It's
a very interesting
sad.
visual perspective.
Exactly.
Yeah. But like most Telltale episodes have something like that, and then also 3 more. You know?
Yeah.
Like I'm coming from the place of trying to be really excited, trying to like cultivate the excitement for the Expanse. And I was very excited about some of the Telltale games that weren't as liked either by the public or by other members of this podcast, like Game of Thrones. I thought Game of Thrones was pretty great, actually. And
who could he be talking about?
But like an episode of Game of Thrones had so many ideas in it.
Yeah.
And they were interesting ideas. They were things I wanted to play around with more. there's characters in that Game of Thrones game that I think are lame and wet blankets, but there's other characters that I kind of would appreciate, like, yeah, J.R.R. or not J.R. G.R.R. Martin. Why don't you go ahead
Yeah.
and write a little short story about that character? What happened to Maya? Maya's not her name. The one from King's Landing. What's her name?
Is it Mara? That I totally forgot. Yeah, she died.
She didn't have to.
Yeah, for me, she did.
Okay.
Yeah, like, I'll say this about Game of Thrones. It's not my thing. I'm just not a Game of Thrones guy, but I don't necessarily think it's a bad game. Like, I still felt like each episode was worth my time. It had interesting developments in the story, and I was pretty cold on the ending of it.
Mira, by the way.
Huh?
Mira,
that's it. Yeah. But I think it, like, earned where it goes.
Yeah.
Like, each episode, I was like, what's gonna happen with these characters?
It earned where it goes. It dealt with choices. I think Game of Thrones might be the second place in these Telltale series of, like, how well I think it deals with choices.
Right.
The game itself, I don't think, is as good as Wolf Among Us or Tales from the Borderlands. But I don't think either of those games actually deal with their choice systems nearly as well as Walking Dead did either. So, like, it had some strengths. It had some real strengths. And I think the Expanse's strength is the exploration of it all. Which I think was also in this episode weaker than the other two by a lot.
Yeah, like, I actually went out of my way to explore, like, a couple rooms.
Yeah.
I went, when doing these, the electrical circuit stuff, I was like, why don't I check what's in here? Oh, it's not much. I think you get a message from somebody. I picked up something, I don't remember. But even then, after a couple of rooms, I was like, is that all? Okay, never mind. I'm not going to check out these other rooms.
Mm-hmm. I think we got sidetracked a lot of times. We didn't actually explain what the thing is. You go to this space station. These are the coordinates. This is where the big score is supposed to be. And you find a bunch of coffins. That's the first interesting thing that you see. Coffins that have been exposed to the vacuum of space. And the bodies in them, even though they appear to be like hundreds of years old, they seem to be among the first group of privatized Earthers that have gone and explored the asteroid belt.
Right.
So these are like the first round of belters. Their bodies they look just like how they did when they died, because bodies don't deteriorate in the vacuum of space, which is something I've never had to think about before. But it is true. I guess it makes sense. There's not going to be, like, bacteria that eat away at you, or fungus, or earthworms. So
I wish there were worms in space.
You're done eating. You're done sleeping. You're done aging. So the body is just, like, exactly how it was when you
It's like
died.
a doll.
And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, like, well, I don't think it actually would be that way. For one, I think your skin would eventually, not instantly, but eventually start to physically boil because of the lack of pressure. So that would deteriorate the body's structural integrity just in general.
Right.
And also, the insides of you are different than the outsides of you. So the insides of you are going to have tons of bacteria that start to eat away at the body before they start to, like, really feel the effects of the vacuum of space as it goes all the way through you.
Maybe they are, like, totally deteriorated inside, but all the skin is there, so they're like a Halloween costume.
Okay. There was also there were some schematics for the coffins, but some people were outside of coffins and, like, they were fine too. But these coffins it was pretty low tech, but they had, like, a humidifier and dryer. So like, I think the idea was somehow by the use of just keeping the water around you, even though there's no air, it's the vacuum of space, just sort of around you, you can have these very low energy cost things that can just maintain the body for like thousands of years. Interesting concept. The point of this was, as you find out by looking around the space station and reading audio logs and stuff, they somehow got tuberculosis. There was a tuberculosis outbreak, and
Right.
I've been watching some videos that YouTube insists are for me, and I say, YouTube, I don't know, maybe.
No thanks.
By a guy named John Green, who I didn't actually know about that much, but I have found is incredibly famous, and I don't know how. I haven't known about this guy. And he wrote The Fault in Our Stars, in addition to other things he'll author. And he's just been really into tuberculosis, and he's been making videos about tuberculosis recently, and how
That rules.
we have a cure for tuberculosis. We have had it since the 1950s. But people in the world are still dying at mass, extreme numbers every year of tuberculosis, even though we have a medical cure. And it's just about getting the medicine to the person and the economics behind that makes people still die from tuberculosis, which is horrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the reason that you die if you have tuberculosis, because you just couldn't get like the American privilege of being near the cure. I say American, but really any first world country can get this really, really easily. It's not even that expensive. But like, yeah, if you're in the middle of South America or Africa or Central Asia or something, it can be hard to get just these pills. This I actually don't know if it's a pill or injectable or whatever it is, but tuberculosis is an easily curable but difficult cure medicine or disease to deal with. So I think it's interesting that they chose tuberculosis to be the illness that people on this spacecraft suffer from. It just got in through the food or something, and affected everyone. And they put, I think what they're implying here was none of these people actually died from the tuberculosis, because what they did was when they got when they got like bad enough off that it was clear they were going to die from tuberculosis, they exposed them to the vacuum of space, killing them that way. So every person who's dead in these coffins was technically killed by either themselves voluntarily, or you get the sense like maybe these weren't all voluntary. But yeah, it was something that they did to themselves. Now, they did have a death sentence over their head with having tuberculosis on this ship with no cure, but like this was something that happened to them by a person,
right?
Which I think is it does make it more impactful for sure. This isn't something that it's neither the acts of evil men nor is it a completely natural thing. Because once you like get all the hints of how this happened to these people, I was kind of thinking like, well, that's sad, and I'm certainly biased by the fact that these are children a bit to think it's even more sad than normal.
Right.
But I don't know if I disagree with it. The idea is just like, if aliens come or humans develop their technology even further, they might be able to come here and resuscitate these bodies because they haven't deteriorated. And they might have a better, just more technology to do it.
Yeah, it's interesting how it's both it's very hopeful but a hopeless sight at the same time. Like just seeing like all of these people, all these kids that are dead, like, that's such an awful thing. What a shit show. But then the point is, maybe someone in the future can save all these people. Like, what a situation. It's
Yeah.
interesting how it's just it's very strong both ways.
It's an elegant just fiction idea.
Mm-hmm.
To the I don't think I've seen this exact kind of science fiction proposal before, that like if people are about to die of an illness that you can cure, you just can't cure them, fucking space them and then just wait 1,000 years until someone can unspace someone.
It's gotta happen sooner or later. They can take the space away.
Yeah, and I think hopeful but hopeless is a great descriptor, Dustin, because
that juxtaposition.
yeah, no, you should be proud of having said that.
Thanks. Thanks. I'll start saying it a lot more.
Because I don't disagree with the logic behind it necessarily. Like, sure, I think that what they've proposed could happen, but I also think it's still unlikely. It's not just a matter of time. It's an unlikely thing to be counting on.
Yeah, something that may or may not ever happen.
Yeah.
But I guess it's better than just thinking, oh, this will never ever happen. Yeah, I didn't even think about this when going through it, but yeah, totally agree. I think they pulled that off really well.
Yeah, it's one of those science fiction ideas of like, will we ever as a human race get into space travel seriously? And I think the answer is almost undoubtedly yes, because we've kind of already started, right?
Right.
I think that humans traveling through space, at least throughout our solar system, makes sense, and because we've been to the moon, I can expect, given enough time, we'll go to Mars. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Anything beyond the solar system is kind of like, okay, now we're talking about light years of travel. So, you'll have to invent stasis sleep,
Right.
or time travel. You'll have to invent light speed ship travel, which we're not even close. You'll have to invent so many things, tracking devices for planets around other stars. You'd think that maybe we'd have the math for that. We do not. Like it's such a big jump from like exploring our solar system to exploring the next one, and I cannot say if humans would ever get there. I doubt it. But
yeah,
I think it would be one of the last things we'd be working on before we just kind of peter off and die. And this thing that they're suggesting here, this idea of like working on the spaced bodies, this is one of those like just beyond the jump of believability for certainty, but not the believability for possibility.
They're walking a fine line.
Yeah, these people are being really hopeful about the ability of anyone to ever cure them. I think some of the audio logs even suggest, like, if you're hearing this, you might not even be a human. You might be an alien at this point. I don't know. Like, we're counting on so far in the future to be saved.
Yeah. You could say, I wonder if you have one of those big alien heads.
Yeah, when you moisturize your mouth, I mean beak. How does
that sounds so passive aggressive. that sounds like they're being alien racist.
Oh, these people would absolutely be alien racist, because I haven't heard one thing that describes the culture of the solar system at this point that has not been tinged in violence or like xenophobia in some way, of like those Martians and their shitty Texan country songs.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant beak. Like the alien you are.
I think aliens. I don't know what an alien would look like, and I don't think I can know what an alien would look like, but I do think a beak is likely.
I hope they look like Marvin the Martian.
That's fun. Just like a
Yeah, that would
completely.
be just like round head, big cartoon eyes, and they're like, "Oh, we're here on Earth. Hello."
Yeah, just looking like a Kirby enemy, solid round head situation.
That'd be great, but I feel like you'd be very insulting to them because you'd look down and be like, "Oh, look at them! Oh, look how cute! It's like a little Kirby," and they're like, "Yeah, stop."
Yeah, I mean the size differential on aliens has got to be completely huge. No matter what they are, the
Mhm.
odds that they're anything close to the size we are is got to be astronomically low.
You know what would suck if you met aliens and they just looked like us, except maybe they had like a third ear or something.
And it's just like behind their right ear. So it's not even it just looks like they have a weird like earring from the side until you look at it.
Yeah, you're like, great, cool. Welcome to Earth, I guess.
Yeah, you don't have any ideas for like time traveler? No, just the ears? Okay.
No, we can hear a little better, though.
From one side.
Just from this the other side, not. We haven't reached that yet.
They're working on it.
They're working on fourth ear technology.
Yeah, their society's biggest issue is not having a fourth ear.
I guess I would still make them more advanced than us. They do have the other ear.
Yeah,
also,
that doesn't
I
feel like an
wouldn't-
advancement to me.
Yeah, it would be harder to listen to music.
So the treasure they're finding here, at the core of all of this, is the MK core, which I don't know if we found what the MK stands for.
I don't remember what it stands for.
But we found out it's like a bioweapon.
Yeah.
It gave
You thought it was going to be a treasure, but lo and behold, not so much.
yeah, it seems to have been the thing that gave them tuberculosis. I can't tell if that's it.
That's the impression I got.
Yeah, I don't get that, but all right. Because they also talked about like the tuberculosis was coming from some sort of contamination in the recycled food thing,
Right.
and that doesn't seem to be related to that. This is the part of the episode where there's some plot things that I think I'm actually not able to decipher. Because there was a guy here hiding behind some of the coffins that you get into a little mini like gunfight with. And he was low on oxygen and he was probably delirious, so he recognizes you as a different person. You're trying to figure out who this guy was, and I couldn't figure it out. I think they said he was one of the pirates with like Toussaint. Is that right?
I don't remember. I'm sorry. I don't even remember what his deal was. Maybe.
And then you go through a little further, and then you see like this other guy who very conveniently has all of his iPads with critical information floating in front of him. But even
I'm glad I held on to these.
in exactly the way that are like all facing someone, you could look at all of them at the same time. I read all the iPads, but I don't know who he is still. I mean, he seems to have been a partner of the other guy.
Yeah.
But it went bad somehow. They were trying to get the MK core.
I think she was a doctor.
Yeah.
The one with all the yeah.
But it wasn't during the time of the people in the coffins. This was like recent.
Yeah. Because they brought the MK. Didn't. Now I'm getting all mixed up.
Well, okay. So there was one of the logs expressing that it was a collaboration between these people, sort of acting as mercenaries or bounty hunters, and going to the other ship. The first episode's ship. Is it the Urshanabi?
Yeah.
I said it wrong. I know. That's one of the names I said. Yeah, so like they were going to bring the MK core back to that ship, and then tragedy struck. And I think it's fine if we just leave it as vague as tragedy struck.
Tragedy struck. And at the end of the day, isn't that all what we're trying to avoid?
Aren't we all just a little tragedy strike? So anyway, the I get the tone of what they're trying to say here, which is that people have gone from this MK core. It has always brought disaster, both directly in that it seems to be dangerous and a weapon, and maybe makes people sick, and also indirectly by being an object of great demand because it could be used in a war against one of the other two factions on the solar system. So you can just use it as a weapon and sell it to people who wanted to use it as a weapon.
Yeah.
And the greed there is its own danger. So Drummer, this is another very interesting part of this episode that I think I was negatively surprised with. Maya and Drummer are there. They're exploring. They find the MK core, and Maya says, "What do we do with it?" And then Drummer says, "We destroy it." And I thought I was Drummer. I thought I made the calls like that, Telltale. That
Let me choose. If they ask me as the player what we should do with it, let me decide what to do with it.
I'll probably agree with what you had Drummer do in terms of destroying it. That sounds right to me. But also, this is a choose your own adventure game. I thought that was the thing. Like, that's a critical choice for Drummer to make, and they don't give it to you.
Yeah.
Did you find that strange also?
Yes. Or rather, I didn't at the time, but now that you bring it up, I am like, hey, wait, yeah.
Yeah, like, we had the choice to not sleep with our girlfriend Maya because we were maybe going to be nervous that other people knew we did that. But for something as big as this, they just make the choice for you.
Yeah. I mean, this episode is not showing their strengths very much, I think.
Yeah, and then there was like a debate between Maya and Drummer after this, where Maya said, like, "Hey, maybe we should keep it and use it as a weapon for the belt. We can make this an accessory for the belt to defend itself." And then Drummer tells Maya, "Hey, you haven't been a belter for very long. I don't think you understand how things are done around here. If we have this, there's going to be more infighting than outfighting." And I thought I would get a choice to engage in that conversation too, and didn't. So, like, Drummer's really voicing her mind in this section, and you have no insight into that. You're really not doing that at all.
Yeah, she's like, hold on a second. No, let me do this, player. I got this.
Yeah, it reminds me of going to the grocery store with my incredibly drunk roommate and watching him put the largest bag of marshmallows I've ever seen into the shopping cart, and I need to step in and say, "Actually, you don't have as much freedom of choice here as you'd like to have." And because it doesn't make sense for you to have it given the circumstances.
Given the circumstances.
But I'm not incredibly drunk and marshmallow hungry right now, so I don't know why Telltale is doing this to me.
Why are you doing this, Telltale?
Yeah. This game doesn't feel like it should be that kind of, like, choice-based Telltale game, but they're kind of just already to do it. They're like all in on the Telltale choice thing.
Yeah.
For brand reasons. And I don't know how I feel about that. I think that this game's strongest marketing thing is probably the fact that it is a Telltale game. I would wager that in the video game world, that is a stronger piece of marketing than being an Expanse game. Maybe, probably, I think so. So that's why it's 5 episodes. That's why it's this choice-based thing. But, like, it really doesn't seem concerned with it.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
I guess just because it has that pressure of being, like, the first Telltale is back Telltale game.
Yeah.
So they're like, well, it has to be, and this is just me talking out of my ass. I don't know if this is what the way they thought about it, but it really does just feel like this is the first Telltale game where we're back. It needs to be like a Telltale game. So 5 episodes. It has choices.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely has choices.
It has choices. Yep. It does
Yeah,
have them.
and
Not all the time when you expect to have them, but they are there other times.
yeah, it's weird. It's maybe The Wolf Among Us will be a little more.
I think just by nature of that game being a sequel to another pre-existing game, it's going to be closer to what that game was.
It already set the precedent for it.
Yeah, and also that game is developed by Ad Hoc, which is a studio that formed to do it, versus Deck 9, which is a studio that has done similar things, but is kind of being contracted. Maybe not contracted is the right word, but I'm not sure what their situation is. But brought in to do this.
Yeah.
So that's different too. Yeah, you know, for every thing I'm complaining about in this episode, that one scene of moving from the like the labs where all the coffins are adult sized, and then there's like a room you go in that has a plaque on the wall. Courtney pointed it out. I wrote it down myself. It was very powerful. Just says, these are our children. If you be a healer, heal. If you be miracle worker, work. If you be passer through, pass through, and go in peace. That's very strong, and I felt like it was a really, really strong centerpiece of the episode. You go into the children's mausoleum. It's harrowing.
Yeah.
But the episode keeps going for another 15 minutes or so, and it had been about 15 minutes or so up to that point. And yeah, that's just what this game is for these next 2 weeks. That's another thing. Like, this is the game for 2 weeks.
Yeah. It's weird because I want to say, oh, well, maybe they're saving the interesting stuff for these last 2 episodes. But I'm like, well, if we're 3 episodes in and it's just like the same stuff every time, what makes me think the next 2 are going to be different?
Yeah, I don't think any Telltale game has, up to this point, saved the best for the last 2 episodes. I don't think we've been in a situation where we've been... Maybe Walking Dead Season 2. Maybe that was the only time that it kind of worked like this. Where, like, the first 3 episodes, we kind of went, like, more and more downhill and downhill and downhill. And even episode 4 we did, too. And then 5 was strong. And other games, like Monkey Island... had a much stronger 5th episode than the other ones, but like it wasn't.
That one just goes up, up, up for me anyway. I think it starts.
I think that it's pretty good the whole time, but like it's a very strong episode 5.
Yeah, I think it's good the whole time, but like episode 1 I think is the weakest, and then it just gets progressively better as it goes. Personally, anyway.
Poisonally. It's a good, like Meowth? Is that Meowth?
Oh, poisonally. I like the Tales of Monkey Island.
All right, yeah. Do that more.
Thanks. Maybe I'll make that my thing.
So after you bring back the MK Core and Drummer directs the player that you are going to direct Drummer to destroy it, Arlen and Rayan show up. And they're like, oh, we thought you'd do some stuff. And you don't really get much of an opportunity to explain, like, hey, this thing is incredibly dangerous. You don't want this. And Arlen is just like, hey, you're going to deny us our pay? This is bad. This is a very bad thing.
This isn't great.
Bad luck for you.
To the airlock with you.
To the airlock. They do this thing where Maya's like, well, you're going to brig Drummer just because she's trying to look out for the belt? And then Drummer's like, no, they're going to airlock me because they can't just have me around for 3 weeks. I'll use up all their food.
Yeah, I get it. I want that food for me.
It did seem like they didn't have to do this, and even Rayan's like, "Wait, we don't have to do this," but Arlen is like, "Why would we?
No,
Why would
no,
we
no,
save her
we
life?"
gotta.
Yeah. And this is
Yeah.
where like the finale climax of the episode happens. You're given a choice to trust Rayan or not. Did you trust Rayan?
I did trust Rayan.
Okay, I did too, and Courtney did too. I think everyone's gonna
So
trust Rayan.
it's interesting how you got a different outcome because
Yeah, that's not the
after
thing
it
that
happened.
matters.
Yeah, after it happened, I assumed that would have somehow led to it, but I guess not.
Yeah, so Rayan takes you aside and he's putting you in the airlock and he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go with Arlen on this, but I am not just gonna kill you. Here, take this helmet. You'll be fine. Um, until you starve to death in the vacuum of space, but you won't suffocate.
Yeah, isn't that great?
We love that for you." Uh,
Have a good time.
so I'm in the airlock with the helmet on, and then Arlen brings out Maya, and it looks like they got into a little scrape. And I think this is where it diverges. I try to convince Rayan in that moment that like, hey, do something. This is messed up. She'll die. There's no reason for that. And Rayan disarms Arlen for me. Takes away his gun, and then Rayan and Arlen get in a little fight. And in that fight, I get spaced, and I get shot out to the like the door of the space station we were just at. And then I watch the ship take off with Maya still inside, and that's the episode.
Interesting. I wonder if it has something to do with what you say to Rayan that makes him like stand up to his brother. Because for me, he didn't. He did not try to stop. He was just like, fuck, this sucks that you're doing this.
Yeah.
Darn.
Did you get Arlen his meds last episode?
I think I did, yes.
Okay, so that's interesting then, because Courtney didn't, and I was actually thinking that might have been the main decider, because really that's not for Arlen. That's for Rayan, because he's worried about Arlen. So my thought was, if I do that for Arlen, Rayan will respect me enough that he fights back against Arlen in this episode. But if you did that, then I don't know.
Yeah, because I specifically remember going out of my way to find the medicine just out in the middle of nowhere. And so, yeah, I gave it to him. You'd think that would be what did it, but no.
Yeah, and we both saved his leg, right?
Yeah.
Then that's not it either.
Shoot.
It's interesting because at the end of the episode they say the choices, and at this early stage of the game's release, I have to believe the choice percentage is correct. I have to. It might not be, but I have to believe it is. And
yeah,
87% of people trusted Rayan, according to my choice.
Yeah, I was one of them.
And only 35% of people had Maya on the Artemis alive.
Interesting.
Which is when I found out that she could have died in that scene. I didn't know that.
Yeah, she did for me.
Why didn't...
It's baffling, ain't it?
What? Yeah. That's interesting. Why?
Yeah,
could
I
Maya
really
die?
do think it might have something to do with what you say to Rayan when he's bringing you to the airlock. Sorry, I just suddenly got the hiccups.
Don't apologize.
This usually never happens on the podcast. Now I'm hicking it up.
Okay. I'm Googling it. This is worth a Google. How does Maya die? Her fate is dependent on your choices, but most players did not manage to keep her alive due to the prerequisite of doing all good deeds, including being nice to Rayan. Good deeds?
I believe. Oh. Are good deeds like a mechanic we were unaware of?
No, I don't think a specific one. I just think the general concept of
I feel
good
like I've been
deeds.
pretty nice. I saved his leg. I would count that as being nice to Rand.
Yeah, you didn't get the
I guess
cigar.
I was a little. I guess I was a little mean to him at first. Like when Arlen was giving him the business, I was like, "I'm just gonna sit here and watch you two knuckleheads."
Uh, yeah. I okay. I'm trying to. I'm looking through some Reddit posts about like, hey, why did Maya die?
Why?
Why did that happen? Um, the prerequisite doing all good deeds. That's just what one article said, by the way. Um,
Yeah.
I'm gonna Google the word "why" in there as well. Uh, choices do matter.
Wow.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, okay, so this is from KeenGamer.com in their
Ooh.
review of this episode. Finally, we feel our choices matter as they now directly impact the story's outcome and our characters' fates. The death of Maya happened extremely quickly and was definitely something that took a lot of players by surprise. However, the steps required to keep Maya alive are a bit excessive and often left players feeling cheated out of the possibility of saving Maya. I like that this is in past tense and is talking about like it left players feeling cheated out. It's been out for at the time of recording like 2 days. How do you even know the cultural reception already?
I guess they just kind of assumed.
Yeah, I think they're just maybe they're trying to make the cultural reception with this article.
Turns out nobody really cared about Maya before this.
Okay, so for example, if you stop Arlen from bullying Rayan and you save his leg, Maya will still die if you haven't found the medicine earlier. So is it those three things? You stop Arlen from bullying Rayan at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of like episode 1, and you
Mm-hmm.
save his leg during episode 1, and you find the medicine during episode 2. Um, okay. Interesting. Huh.
Huh.
Did you not do the one at the beginning of episode 1?
Yeah, I didn't stop Arlen from bullying him.
Sorry, kid.
Yeah, boy, I wouldn't have known that would have such dire
Yeah,
consequences.
wow, what an extreme choice dependency.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that.
I don't know if they've ever done something as like surreptitiously important as that. Cuz normally I think there have been a few times when it's been like whatever happens at this critical moment is dependent on a pool of your previous actions. But
Right.
the pool maybe only needs to be at like 80% full in order to be a certain way. Usually. This is a hard
Yeah.
100% dependency.
If you don't do all these right, a major character is dead because of you.
A different character too. It's like if you do
Yeah. Unrelated.
three good things for Rayan, every time they come up with no faltering. For Rayan, Maya doesn't die. That's what are they saying with that? That's such an interesting thing that has to be on purpose. That's got to be. I mean, it's definitely on purpose, but I mean, that has to be for an aim. Why did they do that? Do you think, Dustin?
You got me.
Well, okay.
I I,
I
I
was thinking more like we could workshop it and try to figure it out as a podcast
okay.
that people listen to.
You know what? That's a better idea.
Yeah, I like your honesty. um, yeah, it's got me too a little bit. Why would they want? Are they just saying? Are they just testing you for being a good captain who takes care of the crew? even the maybe weakest element of the crew, who is Ran.
Yeah, it's...
You don't get the
I don't...
strongest element of your crew, which is Maya, unless you take care of the weakest element of your crew, which is Ran. That's starting to look like a thesis.
I guess, yeah, I could see a through line there at least.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry your Maya died.
That's okay. I'm glad yours is still alive.
Yeah. Given our podcast's light, somewhat joking, recurring piece of canon that you have a harder time with love in these Telltale games, I really wish Maya was there for you. You don't deserve this loss, Dustin.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't. I guess love doesn't get any harder than this, does it?
This might be the hardest love could be.
Yeah, I might have fucked up harder than I have before this time.
It might be the hardest anyone's fucked up. She's
I didn't know I was this bad.
Yeah, I guess we didn't talk about how she dies for you because I haven't actually seen it. So,
well, take a guess.
I assume
can you guess?
She's spaced. I know that she is spaced with you. I heard that from Courtney,
yeah.
But I don't know the context.
Yeah, so you try to give her the helmet, and she's like, no, why don't you have it? And then she puts it on you, and she dies because of the space.
Is it like an instant death sort of thing with the space? With the space?
So you have like a few seconds of Drummer saying, no, Maya.
Okay.
That's about it. I'm laughing, but it is well done. It does have an impact.
Okay. And I guess it's pretty cool seeing a character you love not cool in a good way.
It's pretty awesome.
It's an interesting narrative mechanic to have a character you love spaced, and all of a sudden you, along with all the citizens of that space station, hope that someone does figure out how to save them. Because now Maya is one of them too.
Yeah, now Drummer really gets what they were going for.
Mm. Oh, can you put her in a coffin?
It ends right when you like open the door of the station. So maybe next episode.
Oh, I don't think they made a point of showing that Drummer can't open the door. For me.
So she opened it a little.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It
That's
like,
the same.
Yeah.
I also have a note here that anything that happens after Drummer is spaced at the end of this episode by Arlen, the facial animations on Drummer are stronger than they've been through the entire rest of the game, and they weren't bad before, but like she's straining her face like when trying to push the door open, and she's like raising her like the ridge of her forehead while looking around for things. It like, great face all of a sudden. Really excellent job. Not that it was that bad before, again, but just for this scene in particular, real great cinematic work on that face.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah, it helps that there's not very many faces in the game.
Especially this episode.
Yeah, how many do you see? You see Khan, Drummer, Maya, Arlen, Ran. That's it. You don't see the face of the guy you shoot that's trying to shoot you out. You don't see any of the dead
And you don't see any of the
faces.
dead body. Yeah, because they're wrapped up.
Yeah, small number of faces, and they do a good job with each of them. That's the privilege you have when you have a video game with 5 faces in it.
That's true.
Huh. Fun.
Yeah, you know what? That's neat.
So how do you feel about losing Maya right now? I think you said sad, but do you want to expand on that?
Expand on the Expanse. That's about it.
Okay.
It sucks that she's dead.
Yeah, I mean,
I wish she wasn't. If I think about it,
I think that this game's strength among other Telltale games, and I'm not trying to like give a minimal compliment here or anything. We've been critical of this game up through this episode, but I think the love story in The Expanse, even just in the 3 episodes we've played so far, I think it's this maybe the strongest love story we've had in a Telltale game. I feel it's strong.
Maybe.
What's the competition?
Um,
There you go, dude.
Are you? Hold on. Hold on a second. Are we specifically just talking about like the story is about that? Like the romance between two characters is a big plot point.
I'm just saying in the times we've seen that, this is one of the stronger ones, if not the strongest. We did say a lot of good things about Javi and Kate very recently.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of continuing to say good things about Javi and Kate. I like them. They're up there.
Yeah. I like Guybrush and Elaine. I thought they were adorable.
Guybrush and Elaine is very good.
They're adorable in that. And like this wasn't like a big part of the story, but I liked Reese and Sasha. I'm not comparing like obviously
okay.
Obviously Maya and Drummer is like a more important thing, but I liked seeing them together there.
They were fun. I think that Maya and Drummer are stronger than that.
Well, I think part of it's also
that game is better.
Well, I think they focus more on the love between these two characters in The Expanse.
Yeah.
In Tales from the Borderlands, that was just kind of in the background. It was nice, and I do.
It was kind of
like
responsibly understated
more.
because in that situation, the romance a character has with another character in the party truly wouldn't be that big of a deal. We try to, as romance enjoying individuals, a species that we are, we try to prize that above anything else that's happening. Like, really, it's about the love, even though they're in a post-apocalypse or whatever. And I don't really think that would be the case. So I thought it was refreshing seeing it in that way in Tales from the Borderlands. In this case,
Totally.
I do think that the relationship would probably be more important than like the day-to-day stuff that they're doing in The Expanse. So I liked seeing it more here. I think nothing in any of the Walking Dead games, except maybe what we just said about Javi and Kate, really get up there. I did not like the snow stuff that much in The Wolf Among Us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I could never put them over Guybrush and Elaine. Like, remember the ending with
you're
the
very
ring?
right, Dustin. That was a strong one. It was a good one.
Yeah, but I
Max and
also
Bosco's mom.
Yeah, yeah, they're up there. But I also feel like Monkey Island with Guybrush and Elaine might have an advantage just because it spends multiple games building up their relationship. Like, obviously, I'm gonna care more about that. Here, we've only had like a few episodes and only a little bit of them before one of us had something happen to Maya. So I do feel like they do a good job with it up until this point anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it comes down to favorite Telltale couple, I gotta give it to Guybrush and Elaine. But they do a good job.
They're not my favorite couple. I think the story of it is very strong. And I think I am also more predisposed to giving it to Guybrush and Elaine because even though there were multiple games leading up to it, I don't think Guybrush and Elaine have been good up to that point, actually.
That is a good point. Like, in Curse, it's very Elaine is just turned into the gold statue. She barely does anything.
Yeah.
I never played Escape.
In 1 and 2, it's good, but they're like it's a joke. In Curse, they get married, and it's not good. And we haven't played Escape, but I have heard it's not, mind blowing.
I hear Elaine is actually pretty bad in Escape, but
yeah,
very very cute couple in Tales.
Tales and Return, top tier.
Yeah, I was about to say they stay great in Return
and Legend. Tales and Return and Legend, they're all good.
Yeah, well, we haven't spoilers for Legend. We haven't seen Elaine yet, but it seems like they're in a good spot.
We've seen of Elaine.
Yeah, she's been like, look, I had to leave Guybrush is not himself right now. I got to find someone to help this.
I like what
so
we've
she
seen
is
of Elaine.
very...
The second
Yeah.
episode of that's coming out in a couple
I can't
days.
wait. Yeah, you know what sucks about it?
What sucks
It
about
comes
it?
out. It comes out when I'm gonna be at PAX. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna be able to play it until the 7th at earliest.
Yeah, and I'm
That sucks.
on that day. I'll be at Nintendo World in Hollywood, so I can't play it on that day either.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris Alcock.
You sure? Yeah. Thanks for picking the one day.
Maybe do better next time.
Yeah. This was a B- effort when you're usually doing A pluses.
Want to get into our
No, I love that guy.
our segments?
Yeah, I would love to. Hard week for segments.
Hard week for segments. I agree. You want to start with the hardest one and get easier.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it.
I think Weekly Guy
So
is probably the
Weekly Guy
hardest
first?
one. What do you have?
Yeah. For Weekly Guy, I guess I gave it to Maya just because, she sacrificed herself so we could live.
Not for me.
That's a good trait. Yeah, I can see why she might not be your Weekly Guy.
She just lived.
But
boring.
yeah. Yeah, try better next time, please, Maya. Maybe die next time. But yeah, I thought her death scene was well done. I also have in my notes, I like that you get the back and forths between her and Drummer on the ship. Yeah, I guess that's it, just because no one else did anything Weekly Guy worthy, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about maybe giving it to Rayan, but he sure did not stop Arlen. So sorry, bro.
Yeah.
You don't get to be Weekly Guy this week.
I thought a little bit about Ran, but I don't know. I was trying to figure out, like, if I said it was Ran, why would I be saying it was Ran? And I don't think that his defense of me in front of his brother was particularly inspiring. And I don't know if just, like, being a sidekick to a bad guy is either inspiring. So I didn't do him. Didn't really do Maya. Although Maya had an interesting moment where she says, like, hey, if we... Which made me think, like, okay, is she going to die right now? And it turned out only possibly.
Yeah, not for you, it turns out.
She goes, hey, you were saying earlier, like, what am I going to do with all the money if there's money here to get? And I kind of think I'd just still be doing this. So can we, hang out for a little bit? And I said yes, and it made me think that she was going to die. And, like, that would have been the reason I would have said Maya. But, like, I similarly wasn't... I don't know if it was so inspiring. So what I've said was... And this is suspect. I said the plaque writer. Who we don't see them. I just like what they said about the dead kids.
You know what? In any other episode, I would say it's maybe a cop-out, but I feel like when your options are so limited, I think that's a good pick.
It's because of the limited options, at least in part, can't deny it. But I also do just really like them. They were bringing a lot of themselves to that plaque.
Well, I feel like the message on the plaque is great, but I feel like if it was in an episode with a bigger cast, then you wouldn't choose the guy who wrote the plaque I liked.
Yeah, but, like, in terms of game development, the characters are written by the same people that wrote the plaque,
Right.
So it's still a good job to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What's your choice cut?
I guess trusting Rayan. I don't even know how to... well, maybe not, because it sure didn't help me at all. Like, he didn't save Maya. He didn't stand up to Arlen like he could for you.
It's one of many things you need to do to save Maya.
Yeah.
It was maybe the last thing I did. And I was thinking about not trusting Rayan. Imagine if me satisfying every other choice up to this point that would have figured into that, and then not trusting Rayan right at the very end.
You know what? I don't think I trust you.
It's not important to me that Maya lives, so...
Like, in the moment I could tell, no, this guy doesn't want to do this, I have good reason to trust that he is not behind what Arlen wants to go through with.
My choice cut is a lot smaller. When you see the central mausoleum that has the most coffins on it, and it's the whole the cylinder thing where they're all sticking out of the walls. Maya goes, "It's beautiful," and you have the option to either agree that it's beautiful or call it horrifying. And I think that's my choice cut. It's just a very small little moment of, like, how are you interpreting this clutching onto the possibility of life, but still swimming in the deluge of death that this thing is?
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna change mine to that too. Tristan Ray, and fuck that.
Okay.
I talked myself out of it before you even brought up your choice, but that is a good one. I did need to be like, what? I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah, I said it was horrifying. But I think that's just me role-playing as drummer. I think it is kind of beautiful. Mitchell Wolf does.
Yeah, I said it was beautiful, but this really does just tie into exactly what we were talking about earlier, how it's both a horrifying sight seeing like all these dead bodies, but in a way it is kind of beautiful having that hope for them. Yeah, I didn't even, when going through the episode, that thought never even occurred to me, but yeah, talking through it, I really like that theme of all this. I think that is the good choice in the episode.
Yeah, and Maya thinking it's beautiful, and then drummer thinking it's not, which is what I went with.
What an odd couple.
Kind of, yeah. Opposites attract. Am I right?
One's quiet, one's noisy.
But also, like, Maya's a bit distant from it, so she can look at this and see, like, yeah, it's a bunch of dead bodies, but these people were really trying something. And it makes me think about the possibility of, like, what if I went to the pyramids of Egypt? I bet I would find it pretty beautiful and inspiring things that humans, when working together, can accomplish big things. And if you turn your brain off and ignore the fact that it's probably a lot of slave labor, for the benefit of the 1% of the 1% of the 1%.
Yeah.
And don't think about that.
Just think about how cool it looks.
Makes it feel pretty beautiful and inspiring. But if you were Egyptian and contemporary with the time of building the pyramids, you might be more aware of the fact that it's a tomb. And it's a dead body is in there, in the same way that we're looking at dead bodies in these coffins. And because I am not Egyptian and I am not of that time, I have an easier time of ignoring that. And Maya is Martian, and she's looking at a bunch of dead Belters. Drummer has long been a political ally of the Belters and has been looking out for the Belters and has only seen what the Earthers and Martians have done to Belters with their level of privilege comparatively. And she's looking at, like, hey, these Belters could have lived. It's tuberculosis, you know? They don't talk about that in the episode, but I have this newfound respect for tuberculosis as a thing that we have to deal with because of YouTube's interesting algorithms effect on me. And now I have to think about that.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So I thought that was a good choice.
Yeah, I totally agree. Much better than trusting Rand, which did not end as well as it could have.
Golden moment.
I guess the Maya death scene, it just hit me the most emotional moment of the episode. Even then, you know, I've seen other deaths. I've felt
I've
stronger
seen death
about,
before.
I've seen better deaths in Telltale games.
Wow, that's a hard thing to come back from being desensitized to. That's the most humans can experience. Death.
Well, I think about, like, last week. Remember when they were the flashback at the beginning of last week's Walking Dead episode, when Javi and Kate saw Gabe's friend, and they were just talking about how much that sucked, seeing him as a muertos.
Yeah. Era muy alto.
That did hit me. I was like, oh, this is great what they're doing here. And them killing off Maya, I feel like it is impactful. It sucks. But I feel like getting to hear the characters talk about it and how it affects them is really what seals the deal for me. Just giving seeing how the death affects people, just the outcome of it. And here it ends right after she dies. And so it's sad. It's great that she gives you her helmet. And it's still my golden moment to the episode. But it's just because the episode's so short. What else am I going to pick? I guess whatever you pick, because you didn't get that.
I chose the child's tomb area.
Yeah, that's a good one, too.
Yeah, I'm kind of doubling down on my weekly guy for that.
Right.
And we've talked about why I think it's strong. And why Courtney thought it was strong as well.
Yeah, so I don't think it's like an awful episode that has no merits or anything. There's some good stuff in there, but I don't know, just the actual gameplay loop of it, and just how short it was, it really does bring it down for me. Even if there's good stuff in it, I can't just write it. I can't just say like, oh, this is a CSI tier episode or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, so 35% of players saved Maya, which means that 65% of players had Maya die in this episode. That's a high percentage and makes me think Maya's dying for me in the next episode, regardless of what I do.
Yeah.
Because I think we're looking at a Nick in Season 2 of Walking Dead situation where, I mean, if they do build up a huge end of this season where, like, it really can branch in 1,000 different ways, which we actually haven't seen that much from Telltale Games. Mm-hmm. The ending usually kind of converges.
Yeah, I think like Walking Dead Season 2 had the multiple endings.
Having three, it had like 3 main endings and then like little variations that can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, for the number of choices and bifurcations that can happen through an episode, that's actually not very many. We certainly don't have any amount of endings to compare with something like Baldur's Gate 3 or Shadow the Hedgehog.
Now we're talking. Now you're speaking my language. I've been in a very Sonic mood the last few
How do you feel about Shadow the Hedgehog, the video game?
Never played it.
I played it,
but I know of it. I know like its infamy and its endings.
It's fun to play through once, and then you need to play through it about 251 more times to get to all the endings.
I'm sold. Where do I sign up?
GameCube. Okay, so that's been The Expanse, Episode 3. First ones, again released on August 24th, 2023. Developed by Telltale Games and Deck 9. 10 out of 10?
That's true. I agree with all of that you said.
It is, yeah. It was released on August 24th, and I don't want to hear anything to the contrary, even though it was playable by people who pre-ordered on the 23rd.
Yeah, you know what? I hadn't thought of it up until now, but you saying it, yeah, I do agree that's when it came out.
Mm-hmm. We've only got 2 more episodes, and I wonder if Arlen's going to be the big bad guy.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that. Like,
yeah.
I think in those first 2 episodes, I assumed there was going to be something with Arlen. Like, you could tell he was way more aggressive than his brother. So
yeah.
I figured they were building up to something.
He was irritable, though. Like, I didn't think... Khan is also irritable. And Virgil's got a couple secrets. I didn't think it was going to be that big of a problem.
I wonder... I guess they have to dive into those Virgil secrets, right? Like, will they...
Do you think that's a finale thing, or do you think that's a next episode thing? I mean, I'm not even on the ship. We're not on the ship anymore.
That's true, yeah. I mean, when they brought it up in the first episode, I thought, this has got to pay off in some way, right? But the next 2 episodes, maybe they're like 15 minutes each.
Yeah, at this rate, they could just, be negative time by the time we finish the season.
I'm more alive than I was before I played it.
That would be an extremely good video game.
Yeah, you know, you know what? I'd have no choice but to give it at least like an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, by playing it, your life is longer by not playing it. That's not what I go to video games for traditionally, but pretty good. Pretty cool.
Yeah, points to him for thinking outside the box.
Okay, so that's the episode. Have a great summer.
Bye.